Hello everyone, welcome to EduTap and welcome to the Finance 360-degree sessions in which we cover all the relevant and important finance current affairs and the RBI notifications which are important from your exam point of view. Okay, and in today's session we are going to discuss a very important press release of the Reserve Bank of India that is quite in news, that is regarding the primary urban cooperative banks outlook for the 2022-23 that has been recently released by the Reserve Bank of India, and there are the important data points that the Reserve Bank of India has provided. So in today's session we are going to discuss all those important data points that you need to remember from the news article point of view, from the topic point of view, that what is this outlook that has been released by the Reserve Bank of India. So we are going to discuss this in detail, and I have brought the trick for you that how you can remember the data points also. Okay, so do not worry about this outlook. It has a lot of data points, but you will be able to remember them. Okay, so let's start with the topic, but before that there is a very big announcement from EduTap that we have brought for you a offer that is the never before offer, where in the history of EduTap we are providing you the biggest of the offer, that is the flat 50% additional 25% off. That is, you are getting the highest of the discount that we have provided till now, and this is for all the courses that you can see here for the RBI Grade B Gold and Silver combo course, for the NABARD Grade A Gold and Silver combo, for the SEBI Grade A Gold and Silver combo, as well as for the test series of the SEBI Grade A also. Okay, so this is the biggest of the offer that EduTap has ever provided you, the biggest of the discount that EduTap has ever provided to you, and I hope that you will avail this and you will use this. Okay, so this is by using the code that is Save Big. So you can use the code that is Save Big, and this is valid only till 3rd May 2024. So you can use this offer, and this is the biggest of the discounts in the history of EduTap. So I hope you will use this in the best of the manners. Okay, so let's get started, and let's start with the topic now after understanding this discount. So now coming to the topic, that is the primary urban cooperative banks outlook for the 2022-23 has been released by the Reserve Bank of India. Okay, so let's start with this. So the Reserve Bank of India released the 10th volume. So this is the 10th volume of the annual publication that happens. So the primary urban cooperative banks outlook 2022-23, this is the annual publication, okay, that happens for every financial year, and for this time this has been released for 22-23, and this is the 10th volume. Now, which department of the Reserve Bank of India releases this report, releases this outlook? So that is the Department of Supervision, collects the regulatory and supervisory data from all the primary urban cooperative banks and then releases this assessment, releases this outlook for the primary urban cooperative banks. So since 2013, so since when this outlook has been released? So since 2013, a summary position of key financial and performance variables has been disseminated, has been provided by the Reserve Bank of India, by the Department of Supervision. Okay, and in this there are the key ratios that have been discussed. There are the priority sector lending, the advances that have been discussed. Now next is the volume of the year 2022-23 has been brought out by the Department of Supervision. So Department of Supervision is the one that releases this outlook. So this is the basic idea regarding the outlook that has been released. It has been released by the RBI, by the Department of Supervision, and this outlook contains the important information regarding the primary urban cooperative banks. So this is the basic idea. Now, how many urban cooperative banks do we have in our country? So in total we have the 1502 urban cooperative banks in our country. Number of branches are 10,117, and the deposits are of nearly 5.3 trillion. That is 5 trillion, you can remember, and the advances, the loans that have been given by the urban cooperative banks is nearly 3.3 trillion. Okay, so that is the basic of the idea regarding the urban cooperative banks, that there is the huge number of urban cooperative banks that are present in our country. Okay, so now I hope you remember that the urban cooperative banks, they are divided into 4 tiers. Okay, they are divided into 4 tiers on the basis of their deposit size. So the urban cooperative banks that have very less deposit size, or they have only one branch, or they are the unit urban cooperative banks that is only present in one state. So they are the tier 1 UCBs. They are the tier 1 UCBs that have very small deposit size, or they are present in only one location, have only one branch. Then there is the tier 2 urban cooperative banks that have higher deposit size. Then the tier 3 urban cooperative banks have further higher deposit size. Then the tier 4 urban cooperative banks have the highest of the deposit size. So you can understand that the highest, if the tier 1 are the small UCPs, so the highest number of urban cooperative banks in our country are of tier 1, then tier 2, then tier 3, then tier 4. So you do not have to remember the numbers, but through this diagram you can remember. So how you can remember that highest number of urban cooperative banks are in which tier? The lowest tier, that is for sure. Okay. So now tier 1 urban cooperative banks are the urban cooperative banks that are the unit urban cooperative banks that are present in only one state or they have one branch only. Salary earner UCBs, that all the salary earners have come together to save, to do the thrifting. So they have come together. So the employed people, the government employees, they are coming together. They are the salary earner UCBs. They are collectively saving. Okay. And all the other urban cooperative banks that have deposit size up to 100 crores, that are the small urban cooperative banks. Tier 2 are the urban cooperative banks having the deposit size more than 100 crores up to 1000 crores. Tier 3 UCBs deposits more than 1000 crores up to 10,000 crores. Tier 4 urban cooperative banks with deposits more than 10,000 crores. Okay, so this is the idea. Now remember that this is the basic idea. You can remember that there are the 1502 urban cooperative banks, number of branches are these, and the tier 1 urban cooperative banks are the highest number of urban cooperative banks in our country. Now coming to the idea that the urban cooperative banks, they are divided in between two groups. One is the scheduled bank, and the other ones are the non-scheduled urban cooperative banks. So the scheduled banks are the ones that have got the registration, that have got the license under the second schedule, of the RBI Act. So all the scheduled banks, scheduled commercial banks, the scheduled urban cooperative banks, they get the license, they get the registration under the second schedule of the Reserve Bank of India Act. So the scheduled urban cooperative banks have got the license, have got the registration under the second schedule of Reserve Bank of India Act. Second schedule means that you are getting the benefit of taking the loans from the Reserve Bank of India. You have to maintain the cash reserve ratio with the Reserve Bank of India. So you have some responsibilities, but you are also getting some benefits. Okay, for the non-scheduled urban cooperative banks, these benefits are not present. They cannot take the loans from the Reserve Bank of India under the repo operation. They do not have to maintain the CRR with the Reserve Bank of India. They have to maintain the cash reserve ratio with themselves. So these are the non-scheduled urban cooperative banks that do not come under the second schedule of the RBI Act. So that is the basic idea. Okay, in the revision session we have discussed that there are the guidelines, clear-cut guidelines that have been released, that which urban cooperative banks will come under the second schedule. So these are the urban cooperative banks that are in the tier 3 and tier 4 that are following the financially sound and well managed criteria, as well as they have the CRAR of at least 3% more than minimum CRAR requirement. Okay, so these are the scheduled urban cooperative banks that will be getting the second schedule, that will be registered under, that will be under the second schedule of the Reserve Bank of India. That means they will be considered the scheduled urban cooperative banks. So you can understand that only 51 out of 1502 urban cooperative banks, there are only 51 urban cooperative banks that are considered the scheduled bank, that are coming under the second schedule, of the RBI, which have the benefits like other scheduled commercial banks. Okay, so out of the 1502 urban cooperative banks, the 1451 are the non-scheduled ones, are the non-scheduled urban cooperative banks that are not under the second schedule, and only the 51 urban cooperative banks are the scheduled banks that are under the second schedule of the RBI Act. Now here the non-scheduled bank, that is the 1451, are the non-scheduled urban cooperative banks. Most of them are the single state. Most of them, here you can see, most of them are the tier 1 we can say, or most of them are the single state non-scheduled urban cooperative banks, and some are multi-state non-scheduled urban cooperative banks, means these are the banks that are not getting the registration under the second schedule because either they are in the tier 1 and tier 2 or they are in the tier 3 and tier 4, but they are not financially sound and well managed. They are not having the good criteria. That's why they are not under the second schedule. Give me a thumbs up if you have understood everything till now. Give me a thumbs up if you have understood everything till now, or if there is any confusion, tell me. I'm trying to build a understanding in your mind so that you can remember the data points in the examination. You do not have to cram it only. You can understand that, okay, out of the 1502 urban cooperative banks, 51 are the scheduled ones and the 1451 are the non-scheduled ones. Okay, and why they are scheduled, why they are non-scheduled, that also I hope you have understood. Now coming to the next point, that the data has been released regarding the priority sector lending, okay, regarding the priority sector advances. So the urban cooperative banks are the one, out of their total lending, out of their total advances that they are providing 66, nearly 67% of advances they are providing for the priority sector and the weaker section. So nearly 67% of their advances are going for the priority sector and the weaker section. That is, from the total advances, there 2 trillion of the advances, out of the total advances, 2 trillion, nearly 2 trillion of the advances are going for the priority sector and urban cooperative banks. Okay, so here you can see the data points. Here are the important data points that have been taken from the newspapers. So the advances of the urban cooperative banks to the priority sector has surged more than 27%. So in the previous year, let me show you the previous year. In the previous year, the advances that were given were 1.73 trillion. That has increased to 2.20 trillion. So the increase that has come in the lending that is happening to the priority sector and to the weaker section, that is increased by 27%. Okay, that is increased by 27%. So you can understand that from the previous year, the lending, the advances that have been given to the priority sector and the weaker section, that has increased by 27%. Okay, the RBI report put the advances that were 1.73. So from the 1.73 trillion, the advances has increased to 2.20 trillion. So you have to remember this, that the advances has increased from 1.73 trillion to 2.20 trillion. That is the advances that is going to the priority sector and weaker section. So this is all the data. This is the data that you have to remember from this whole idea. Okay, one more data that I will tell you so that you have to remember, but this is the basic idea. Now coming to the next point, that is, see, most of the lending that is happening under the priority sector, most of the lending, that is 40% of the lending, is happening to the MSMEs. Okay, so a majority of the advances that is given by the urban cooperative banks was given to the MSMEs, was given to the micro, small and medium enterprises, amounting to 1.3 trillion. 1.3 trillion, that is 40% of the total advances that is going to the priority sector is going to the MSME. Okay, so of the total lending by the UCBs to the priority sector, almost 40% was to the MSMEs in the financial year, that is ending in March 2023. That is in the financial year 2022-23, that is ending on March 31st, 2023. So in this financial year, most of the 40% of the lending has happened to the priority sectors out of the total lending in the priority sector. Okay, within MSMEs, micro enterprises had the highest share at 17.23%. So that is the basic idea. So from the previous year, if we compare, so that is, in the previous year, MSMEs were getting the highest share of 34%, but now they are getting the highest share of 40%. Okay, so now composition of credit to priority sector by urban cooperative banks as on March 2023. So the highest share is going to the micro and small enterprises, that is out of the total priority sector lending. Now if we see that if the priority sectors are 100 rupees, so we can say the maximum is going to the MSMEs. Okay, so now Coming to the PSL targets. So it has been said by the Reserve Bank of India that by 2024, by March 31st, 2024, they have to start maintaining the priority sector lending of 60%. But they are already, we have seen that they are already doing 66% of the lending to the priority sectors. That means RBI has set the target of 60% for the priority sector lending by the urban cooperative banks till financial year 24. However, urban cooperative banks had already achieved 66.88% of the lending that they are doing to the priority sector. So, out of the total lending, so here we have seen that out of the total lending of 100 rupees, they are doing the 66.88% of the lending to the priority sectors. Out of this 66.88%, the 40% is going to the MSMEs, But if we only consider for the priority sector, that means if the 100 rupees are going to the priority sector, then 60 rupees is going to the MSMEs. So remember this very clearly that in this diagrams, what are the comparison point? Here we are taking the total from the total advances, what is going to the MSMEs. Here we are taking from the priority sector advances, what is going to the MSMEs. Okay. So now we have seen that the 60% of the priorities. So that is what I am trying to tell you, and I knew that this was the confusion that will be coming. Here the 40% is out of 66%. From the 66%, okay, from the 100 rupees, nearly 43 rupees is going to the normal loans and 67 rupees is going to the priority sector. Out of the 67 rupees, 40 rupees is going to the MSMEs. So here we are seeing that out of the 67%, 40% is going to the MSMEs. In the pie chart, we are seeing that if the 100 rupees is going to the PSL, is going to the priority sector, then from that 100 rupees, the 60 rupees is going to the MSMEs. Okay. So the comparison point in this diagram, the comparison point is the 66%. That is going to the priority sector lending, okay, because we are seeing that advances that is done to the priority sector from the total loans, okay. But here we are saying that if only the priority sector we are considering, that let's say 100 rupees is going to the priority sector, then it will become 60 rupees, okay. Is it understandable now? You have to take out the 40% of the 66, so that will be 60, like from the 100 rupees, 60 rupees is going to the MSMEs. So that is the idea, okay. Now, so that always remember that what is the comparison point in the percentages. Now coming to the idea that RBI has set a target of 60%, that you have to achieve 60% of priority sector lending, but the urban cooperative banks have already achieved 66 or 0.88 or 67% of the priority sector lending, okay. So now at the same time, the scheduled commercial bank has also achieved their priority sector lending targets that you can read. So they have the target that is of 40%. So they have achieved 44.7% of the lending to the priority sector. So for the urban cooperative banks, this is very good that first of all, they have to meet their 60% of the target till March 31, 2024, that they have to start maintaining 60% of the priority sector lending from March 2024, but they have already started maintaining the priority sector lending more than even 60%, okay. For the scheduled commercial banks, they have to maintain 40% of the PSL, but they have already like maintaining above than that, okay. Yes, 40% of the total loans that is provided to the MSMEs is equal to the 60%, we can say is equal to 60% of the loans, the priority sector lending loans that is going to the MSMEs. Very good, correct. So now coming to the next idea, that is the non-performing assets. So the non-performing asset, through this chart you can understand that the non-performing asset in March 31st, 2023 is like for all the urban cooperative banks, the gross non-performing asset is 8.84%, that has come down from the 10.27%, and the gross net non-performing asset is 2.15%, that has come down from the 2.94%. For the provisioning coverage ratio, the provisioning coverage ratio was 71.33%, that has increased to 75.73%. So what is the idea? So gross non-performing asset means these are the non-performing asset. The banks have given the loan, but that loan is not coming back. Okay, the banks have given the loan, but that loan is not coming back. So that is a non-performing asset of the bank. So the total non-performing asset of the bank is 8.84% as on March 31st, 2023. Okay, net non-performing asset means that the banks also keep some provisions, that banks already know that this is the risky asset, this is the asset that might fail. So from that, from the total non-performing assets of 100, let's say the net non-performing asset is 20, because 80 rupees has been covered by the provisions. 80 rupees has been covered by the provisions. So when we deduct the provisions, that the banks are maintaining with themselves from the gross non-performing asset. So if the gross non-performing asset is 100 rupees, the banks, let's say, have already kept the provisions of 80 rupees, then the net non-performing asset that is still left, that is the actual loss of the bank, is 20 rupees. Okay, so here the provisioning coverage ratio is 75. That means that out of the 100 gross non-performing asset, the provision is of 75. The provision is of 75 rupees. So provisioning coverage ratio is actually the provisions that the bank is keeping out of the total gross non-performing asset. So that is the idea, that how much the provisions are there that are covering the gross non-performing asset. So if the gross non-performing asset is 100, the provisions are of 75 rupees. So that is the idea. Okay, so we have understood that the gross non-performing asset has decreased from the 2022 mark of 10.27% to 8.84%. From the net non-performing asset has decreased. Net non-performing asset are the gross non-performing asset when we deduct it with the provisions. So from the gross non-performing asset, you have deducted the provisions, then you are coming to the net non-performing asset. So that is 2.15%, that has come down from the 2.94% mark. The provisions that the urban cooperative banks are keeping, that has increased to nearly 76% as compared to the 71. Okay, so the gross non-performing asset has improved, has come down from the 10.27% to nearly 9%, we can say. The net non-performing asset has also improved. The PCR, that is the provision coverage ratio, that is the provisions for the GNPA, that has also improved. Okay, through this chart also you can remember everything, that this is the gross non-performing asset. This is the gross non-performing asset for the 2022, for the 2023, that has decreased from this mark to this mark. This is the net non-performing asset that has decreased, and the provisioning coverage ratio has increased. Okay, so this is the basic idea. So all the urban cooperative banks, for this is for the date 2023, this is for the date 2022. So as compared to 2022, GNPA has increased and the NNPA has decreased. And the provisioning coverage ratio, GNPA has decreased, as well as the NNPA has also decreased. The PCR, provision coverage ratio, has increased. Okay, so you can make a table like of thing, that for the urban cooperative banks there are some of the important percentages. You can make a table and you can write that, okay, GNPA in the previous year, in the current year, NNPA previous year, current year, and PCR. So I have provided you the table and the chart so that you can remember the data points. Okay, next and the last point from the report is, from the outlook, is that the highest number of urban cooperative banks are present in Maharashtra. So here through the table you can see that the highest number of urban cooperative banks are present in Maharashtra, and the highest number of urban cooperative banks as per the area: north, northeast, east, central, west, south. So highest number of urban cooperative banks are present in the western region of our country, and if we see in the state wise, so the highest number of urban cooperative banks are present in Maharashtra. So this is the idea, and we have seen that number of urban cooperative banks is this much, number of branches 10,117, deposits are 5 trillion, nearly 5 trillion, advances are nearly 3 trillion. So this is it. Any confusion in any of the idea? Any confusion in any of the diagram, in any of the data? So you do not need to worry about, see, there are the data points that you have to remember, but remember that there are the tricks. If you understand the data points, it will be in your subconscious mind. So you do not need to be afraid about the data points. Just try to understand that why this data point is there, okay? So Maharashtra has the highest urban cooperative banks, has the highest cooperative banks because there are the cooperatives that are being used for the saving purposes, okay? Any confusion, anyone? Clear? Okay, let me take a test of yours, then let's see how much you remember. What is the GNPA ratio in the current period? Just tell me approximately also, that is also fine. What is the NNPA and what is the PCR? So tell me the ratios of 2023 because that is important. So this is what you have to tell me, as well as tell me that what is the number of scheduled urban cooperative banks in our country? How much is the increase that has happened in the priority sector lending, the total increase that has happened? So, okay, GNPA is 8.8%, NNPA is 2.94% is for the previous year, right? Current year, 2023, like for the year that we are studying, it is 2.15%. It is 2.15%. The PCR, the provision coverage ratio is how much? 70, okay, Rohit has told 75, yes, 0.73 or 75%. Now, the scheduled urban cooperative banks, we are not asking the total urban cooperative banks, only the scheduled ones, So that is 51. Now, what is the increase in the priority sector lending? 27%, yes. That is 27% increase in the priority sector lending from the 2022 to 2023, we can understand, okay? So this is the idea. This is the data points that you have to remember. I hope most of the data points you have already remembered, and the data points that you are doing any mistake, you will clear it also, okay? So now tell me that out of the total lending that is happening, that how much lending is going to the MSMEs? From the total lending of the urban cooperative banks, the lending that is going to the MSMEs in the priority sector lending is how much? That is the last data point that you have to tell. So out of the total lending that is happening, that is done by the urban cooperative banks, how much lending is going to the MSMEs? I'm not asking about PSL, I'm asking total lending of urban cooperative banks. So from the total lending of the urban cooperative banks, only 40% is going to the MSMEs. If we say that MSMEs, urban cooperative banks, the lending that they are doing to the PSL, from this lending, how much is the lending to the MSMEs? Then it will be 60%. But here I am asking that out of the total lending from the urban cooperative banks to all the sectors, how much lending is going to the MSMEs? That is 40%. Out of the lending that the urban cooperative banks are doing to the PSL, how much is going to the MSMEs? So that is 60%. Usually you have to remember the 40% because from the total it will be asked, okay? Now from the total lending by the urban cooperative banks, what is the total lending? From the total lending by the urban cooperative banks, how much is the lending that is going to the priority sector lending? From the total lending by the urban cooperative banks, how much is the lending that is going to the priority sector and the weaker section? Percentage, in percentage. Percentages are more important, okay? So in number also it is 2.20, but in percentage, the total lending that the urban cooperative banks are doing, out of that, how much is going to the PSL and the weaker section? Yes, very good, Rohit. It is 66.88%. So the urban cooperative banks are lending to different sectors. From that different sectors, 66.88% is going to the PSL. Okay, yes. And if the urban cooperative banks are from the total lending, the lending that is going to the MSME, that will be 40%. But from the PSL lending, how much lending is going to the MSMEs? That will be 60%. So I hope this is clear. So this is the basic idea that you have understood now. Now try to give the right answer of this first question. So this is your question and you have to give the right answer of this question. Okay, in the homework section, in the comment section, try to give the right answer of this question. So this is the first question, this is a homework question, and this is the second question. I hope you will be easily able to answer this question now. I have tried my best so that you can remember the data points, and I have brought it in the table form, in the chart form, so that you can remember the data points, okay? So thank you very much. This is it. Remember that there is a never before offer that is going on. That is the biggest discount that we have ever provided to you. So you can avail that also. And do tell me in the comment section that what are the answers of the homework questions, as well as you can write the data points in the comment section to remember it also, okay? So this is how I remember the data points, by writing them and by making some kind of idea behind those data points, okay? You are most welcome, everyone. Thank you so much. Do comment down below the answers of the homework question, and if you are liking the sessions, then also you can write it in the comment section. So thank you very much. Have a good day, everyone. Thank